I honestly really feel a sort of hate towards Sony and Disney. You can look at the Spider-Man deal shenanigans between the companies in two different ways. You can look at it as Disney wanting money for their hard-earned work, since Marvel's underneath them and making the Spider-Man movies for Sony. Or you could look at it as Disney being too greedy, since half of the money Sony is making doesn't make a difference compared to the billions and billions of dollars of money that Disney has. Disney is a behemoth of a company, with toys and Star Wars and everything. If you ask someone to name any animated movie, it's likely a Disney one. Before I talk about Tom Holland's Spider-Man himself, and whether it's a good or bad move, ripping him away from Marvel Studios, I just want to try to give you an idea of how famous Spider-Man as a character is. Spider-Man is the most popular superhero of all time, next to Batman and Superman. Spider-Man is so famous, he has cartoons, toys, action figures, shows, a Broadway musical. Heck, Spider-Man has more shows than Superman, despite Superman being more popular. Spidey has become more than just a character now. He's literally a culture. Even before his first movie, everyone liked him. He even had a wedding at the New York Mets game. That's how popular he was. He has a Japanese series, and again, I said this already, he has a Broadway show that I actually saw, believe it or not. He has a roller coaster ride. He's got a Lego video game, 6 modern movies, 3 film franchises. He's in Family Guy. You get the point. Spider-Man is so loved and famous, and he doesn't even exist. The only people who don't know who Spider-Man is are either deaf and blind people and newborn babies. The fact that he's owned by an actual company is crazy, because a character this popular feels like it shouldn't even be owned. I feel like when you have a character this popular on your hands, making fans happy comes first before anything else. Making good movies should be the number one thing on your hands because you want to bring the character to life. It's honestly sad that the Amazing Spider-Man movies and the Venom movie have anything to do with the Spider-Man name. Why am I saying these things? Because it leads me to the point that Disney and Sony care about the money the character is getting than making the fans happy. You have a character on your hands that people love, but because you care about how much money you're making off of it, more than making the fans happy, you vault the character and make the fans sad. How does it sound when I put it that way, huh? I'm not saying that I don't have problems with the MCU Spider-Man. I think he has plenty of problems, but I still think he's a pretty great character to have in the Marvel Studios name. If Disney was asking for 50% of the take and I was Sony, I would say yes, because I care about making people happy, although I'm more on Sony's side. If I were Disney and Sony said no, that they didn't want to give away 50% of their money, I would be fine as Disney, because the money Spider-Man makes doesn't make a difference when you own every good animated movie ever, besides the Kung Fu Panda trilogy. Every Spider-Man movie that had Sony and other executives' interference is bad. If you can look at the movies and see the ones that didn't have executive or studio interferences, you can see a pattern there. So Sony, hire a director who knows their shit. There are a multitude of possibilities for what's in store for Spider-Man after this. Let me break it down. Possibility 1. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time, but this time it's the best Spider-Man we ever got, which is unlikely since nothing gets better than Tom Holland in Homecoming. Possibility 2. Tom Holland continues as Spidey, but without any trace of the MCU, which means no MJ or Ned, since those are original characters made under Marvel Studios. Possibility 3. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time, but he sucks. Possibility 4. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time and he's mediocre. Possibility 5. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time and he's above mediocre. Possibility 6. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time and he's in a Venomverse and doesn't get a solo movie and his character sucks. Possibility 8. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time and he's in the Venomverse now and doesn't get a solo movie and his characters ranged from bad to mediocre to above mediocre. Possibility 9. Sony reboots Spider-Man for the 4th time and he's in the Venomverse now and he gets a solo movie and his character is anywhere from bad to okay. Possibility 10. Spider-Man 4 happens. Possibility 11. There is a reboot of Miles Morales as Spider-Man in live action, and he's ranged from bad to good. Warning, possibilities 12 to 16 are the same as possibilities 3 to 9, but Tom Holland plays Spider-Man. But the question is, should Spider-Man be out of the MCU? It's likely that if he is out of the MCU for good, whatever Sony does with him is gonna be bad. And not only that, I just don't want to see Spider-Man rebooted again unless he's gonna be as good as MCU Spider-Man or Raimi's Spider-Man, which he probably wouldn't. I feel like Spider-Man doesn't need a new reboot, and if he has to, it has to be in at least 7 years' time or until Tom Holland's Spidey has wrapped up his arcs and story. None of the Spider-Men in live action had a definitive ending to their story. I know Tobey Maguire kind of did, but Spider-Man 4 was a cancelled thing, so I'm not considering it one. Tom Holland has so much more to do with Spider-Man and heaps of potential, and taking him away just strips that away from the audiences and replaces him with a Spider-Man that likely won't live up to him. There are some rumors about Spider-Man deals being made to get Spider-Man back into the MCU, and things might be looking hopeful. So if Spider-Man is back in the MCU, then hooray. But just because he's back in the MCU doesn't mean that I want him to stay the same way. I have many problems with the MCU Spider-Man, despite him being the best and quite possibly my favorite. If he's back in the MCU, I still want to see awesome movies from him, and I want a movie that makes me forget Far From Home ever existed, since in my opinion, Far From Home wasn't that good. So studios, if Spider-Man swings his way back home to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then be grateful and make good movies with him. Please. I want him to be good.
Change me apart all. 君はなぜ君はなぜ戦い続けるのか命をかけて